The paranormal is something that us humans don't understand. There are those that believe you shouldn't mess with the paranormal and that it's very much real. All over the world, people are experiencing things they can't explain. So in this video, we count down 5 real-life mysterious events that people couldn't explain. This person's brother had a mysterious encounter while out in the garden. They said the following. This all took place around 2 years ago in the middle of summer at around 12 o'clock at night. My older brother was out of the house and I forgot what he was doing that night. While he was out, I was inside the whole time except from when I let my dog out. While out there, she must have sniffed out something she didn't like. She started barking towards the nature reserve behind our house, which I thought was odd. I decided to bring her back inside because our neighbours have small kids and I didn't want to wake them up. About an hour and a half after that, my brother got home and went onto the deck to watch some videos on his phone. While out there, he said he heard me calling his name. However, I wasn't outside nor was my dog. Then he heard my dog bark from the same spot, but she was inside with me. He said the bark seemed like it was on repeat and there was something off about this. He described it as sounding somewhat static. He describes how he just stood there and he couldn't move due to having this overwhelming feeling of dread. To this day, neither me or my brother can explain this event. After going for a late night drive, this girl encountered a creature she couldn't explain. She said the following. I would visit my boyfriend every chance I got. We have a long distance relationship and it would take me 5 hours to drive to his house. After spending a long weekend with him, I started making my way back to my house. During this drive, I noticed something I couldn't explain. After driving through a dense woodland, I kept seeing something in the corner of my eye. At first, I thought what I was seeing was an owl or some other wildlife. As I continued my journey, I decided to slow down and try to identify what this thing was. After driving out into a slight clearing, this creature flew in front of my car. If I had to guess, I would say it was around 20 feet from my car. At this point, I was able to get a good look at it. It was a dark brown colour, had reflective red eyes and had bat-like wings. After I got home, I called my boyfriend and told him about what I witnessed. He asked me if I was joking, but I told him I was very serious. He told me to go and search the Mothman. After getting off the phone, I looked up the Mothman and couldn't believe it. This was the creature that I saw. After doing more research though, I noticed that most sightings occur in the US. My encounter happened in England. I don't know what I witnessed that night, and I've tried to tell myself it was an owl, but what I saw didn't match any animal I've seen before. The only thing it matches is the Mothman. This person encounters something strange while practicing astral projecting. They had this to say. I have a cool story that I've only told one person before. Me and my mum are pretty much on the spiritual side of things, and there's no hiding that in our household. Half the apartment has crystals with different purposes, and even an altar that's getting an upgrade along with some other stuff. Something strange happened to me a few months back. I've been practicing astral projecting for quite a while, but could never get it down. I've done some reading to get some tips and advice so I know what to do and I know how to feel, but I could never get out of my body. I've only come close and I know this because I can feel myself on the edge. If I had to describe the feeling, it feels like I was on a cliff and all I had to do was jump, except my legs were cemented into the cliff. This went on for a while. I was always on the edge but couldn't jump. It was as if there was some sort of mental block stopping me. I knew it wasn't sleep paralysis since I wasn't asleep, and I was able to move if I wanted to. One night I was feeling incredibly lucky and decided to give it a go. I did some peaceful meditations and during this all I could feel was good vibes around me. I'm lying down in bed while doing this and I can actually feel myself falling out of myself. I feel whatever mental block I had melting away at the same time, and as I'm getting out of myself I begin to open my eyes. That's when I saw it. As I opened my eyes I saw this shadowy mass sitting on my dresser that's across the foot of my bed. It was just there, almost as if it was waiting for something. As quickly as I'd opened my eyes I felt myself being pulled back into myself. I opened my eyes and looked around but no one was there. The next day I told my friend about what had happened as she is well educated with these sorts of things, but this story seemed to upset her. We used to be co-workers, and being around me almost constantly, especially from being good friends, she told me she noticed there was something that may be following me, and she told me she was afraid of me practicing this. She's warned me not to do this anymore, and I am taking notice of that warning. This person had a strange encounter while at their parents' house. They said the following: I have had encounters with paranormal things my whole life. I feel like every house I've moved into has some kind of activity. I'm starting to think it may be me rather than the house. One of the most vivid and terrifying experiences I had with the paranormal happened around 6 years ago. At this point, my husband and I moved into my parents' home with our son. He was only around 6 months old at the time. I've always had weird experiences in that house but never worried about it because my dad is a pastor. He told me that over the years he's blessed the house. One night my husband and I were laying in the spare bedroom and my son was in the room next door. During our stay I'd hooked up a baby monitor. I start to drift off to sleep and I can hear my name being whispered. So I asked what my husband said and he said that he didn't say anything. I thought this was strange and then I heard it again over the baby monitor, which I realise now that's where I heard it the first time. I sit straight up and run into my son's room thinking maybe my mum or dad were in there, but they weren't. I had this awful feeling in the pit of my stomach and looked over to the corner of the room, and for a good solid 10 seconds saw something that looked to be around 7 feet tall. This thing had what appeared to be a black robe with a goat head. Then a matter of seconds later it was gone. I went to my son's crib and he was wide awake staring at the corner. I picked him up and as soon as I did my mother's dogs went nuts, barking and growling at seemingly nothing. My mum was outside in the garage and said our cat that lived out there started hissing and swatting right before the dogs started going mad. I should say the room I stayed in when I was younger I would always have the worst nightmares. My dad being a pastor said they were prophetic dreams, but I've always wondered ever since that night if maybe this entity was what was in that room the whole time. When I saw that thing, I had the same feeling every time I woke up from a nightmare. This person had a strange encounter with a girl. They said the following: For most of my life, I grew up in AA. Both my parents would go to a lot of these meetings, and I spent a lot of my free time at the Gratitude House in our hometown. This is important to the story. When I was 12 years old, I went to one of these meetings with my dad. It was in the middle of winter and I was sitting outside drinking coffee alone. This was while the meeting was going on. Suddenly I got this strange feeling and had the urge to look to my left. When I did, I saw a girl. She had blonde hair and had on a faded pink dress. She looked to be 7 or 8 and had no shoes on. I stared at her for a solid 10 or 15 seconds before she disappeared. I thought she was a real child and tried to follow her around the building. However, after looking for a while there was no sign of her. She just vanished. I just remember feeling immensely sad looking at her. I just felt like something awful had happened to her. For some reason I started to call her Chloe. This was over 10 years ago and I still remember it vividly. I wish I knew what happened to her and why she decided to show herself to me. Sometimes I feel like I failed her because I couldn't help her. As far as genuinely debunking this experience, I can't. It was a full body apparition, and unless I was hallucinating, I don't feel like there was a real explanation. So what do you guys make of these events? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.